Hey everyone, Todd from SideshowFX once again, and in this video I'm going to show you the installation of our Universal MIDI Controller for Stream Deck devices package for the Windows system. We'll start off by assigning some ports and installing a few pieces of software, and then we'll get into the application-specific installation methods. So we'll go alphabetically through them, and if you want to jump ahead to a specific package that you need to install, there'll be links in the description below that allow you to jump right to that part. So one of the first things we're going to do, we have to hop onto the web and download a small piece of software that's going to help us align our ports. Now if you've installed one of our other packs in the MIDI controller series, you likely have already gone through the process of downloading loopMIDI and assigning the ports. You can skip this part if you've already done it. They use the same ports. So opening up your browser of choice, you're going to navigate to this address, and the link will be in the description below, and it's also here on the screen for you. Make it easy for you to just hop over to it. And you're going to download this piece of software called loopMIDI. So you just hit the download loopMIDI, and then we're going to double click the loopMIDI setup. And we want to make sure that the auto start loopMIDI when logging in is selected. Very important. You got to make sure that this always will load up when you restart your computer, and that way you don't ever have to worry about aligning the ports every time. And then we'll agree to the license terms. We'll install. Once that's done, we're going to launch. So once we've launched, we get this dialog box here. We're going to assign some new ports. So I'll click on the new port name. We're going to overwrite this. And the first one we're going to enter is Mackie to DAW. And it's case sensitive. So it's capital M and capital D. It's Mackie to DAW. And then we hit the plus sign. We've added that port. Do the same thing again. DAW to Mackie. Hit the plus sign. Now we're going to add another. This will be Stream Deck to DAW track. Once again, being aware of the case sensitivity. Hit the plus sign. And one more. DAW track to Stream Deck. Hit the plus sign. And there you go, we have our 4 ports all set up. Now we can just set this off to the side, and we're going to go to Stream Deck. And we need to install a plugin here. So we'll go to, we're in Stream Deck version 5, so they have the new store here. We're going to click on Plugins. In the search box here, we're going to type MIDI. And it'll be this plugin here that we want to install, MIDI by Cakewalk. Say install. Just takes a second. And once that's installed, we can close out the store.
Now the next thing we're going to do is go over to the Universal MIDI Controller folder that you downloaded from SideshowFX. And in the folder, there's a folder in here called MIDI Graphics. And what this has is all of the graphics for the Stream Deck profile itself. So inside of here, we're divided into Mac and Windows. We're over to Windows. And there's a folder here called Cakewalk. We need to drop this folder into a very specific place, namely your Documents folder. So we'll open our Documents folder here, and we just click and drag, and we'll drop that right into the root of the documents. Don't put it in a folder here, just put it right to the root of Documents. I've already got it there, so I won't do it. Probably the easiest thing would be to drop it straight onto the Documents folder itself, or if you have the navigation pane open, you can just drag it straight onto that Documents folder there. It's probably the easiest way to do it. We'll close that out. Go back to the root of our Universal MIDI Controller downloaded folder, and now we're going to import the Stream Deck profile itself. So inside the Stream Deck Profiles folder, divide it into Mac and Windows again, go to Windows, and you'll find 2 profiles here. One is for the regular 15 key device, and one is for the XL device. So whichever device you happen to be working with, that's the profile you import. Let's open up Stream Deck. Go to the gear icon. Under Profiles, flyout menu at the bottom, Import. Navigate to your Universal MIDI Controller folder, into the Stream Deck Profiles, Windows, and whichever one of these you're working with. I have an Excel connected, so this is the one I would import. And once it's imported, this is the main page.
Now the next thing we're going to do is launch Ableton Live. And we're going to hop over to Options, Preferences, right down here at the bottom. And on the left-hand pane, you'll see this tab here. We're interested in MIDI. In the MIDI section here, under Control Surface, we're going to pull down and we're going to select Mackie Control. For the input, we'll select Mackie to DAW, and the output, DAW to Mackie. Now in the next Control Surface slot, we're going to select Advance, and in the input will be Stream Deck to DAW track, and for the output, DAW track to Stream Deck. Now we have to select a few checkboxes here. So for the in DAW to Mackie, we'll select Track, and for the Advance input, we'll select Track, and for the Mackie Control input, we'll also select Track. Now also for the Mackie Control input, we want to select Remote. Now for our out Mackie Control output, DAW to Mackie, we'll select Track, and the out Advance output, DAW track to Stream Deck, we'll also select Track. One more thing we need to do, for the Advance input, we need to select MPE. Now there is a screenshot of this on the PDF that was included in your download. You may find that handy to just compare it on your desktop to make sure you've got the correct boxes checked. So once we're done that, we can close that out. We're finished with Ableton for now. Now the next thing we're going to do is launch Cakewalk. We're going to go to Edit, Preferences. We're going to hop to MIDI Devices here, and in our Inputs dialog, we'll select Mackie to DAW and Stream Deck to DAW track. Those are our two inputs. And for our outputs, we're going to select DAW to Mackie and DAW track to Stream Deck. And make sure we click Apply. And now we'll go over to Control Surfaces. We're going to import a new control surface, so we hit this button here, the Add New Controller Surface. Scroll down to select a Mackie Control, and the input port will be Mackie to DAW, and the output port will be DAW to Mackie. Select OK. We'll apply that. Close. Now we're going to go over to Utilities, Cakewalk Plugin Manager. We'll scroll down to Control Surfaces, Mackie Control, and we're going to import a plugin preset. You'll need to go to your Cakewalk MIDI Controller download that you got from SideshowFX. In there will be a folder called UMC Setup, and the file in that folder is SideshowFX UMC Setup. Click that to import it, and we'll close out. And now we're going to go to Utilities, Mackie Control. It opens up this dialog box for us, and we're just going to change a few things here. We're going to change the F1 to generate metronome during playback. There's a lot of things in this list. Unfortunately, it doesn't filter it very well. So we'll hit Generate Metronome during playback. Checkbox Select Highlights Track and Disable Handshake. And the master fader has to switch to bus. And those are the setups for Cakewalk. So next we launch Cubase. In the top menu we're going to go to Studio Setup. And on the left hand pane here we'll go down to MIDI port setup. Now your dialog may look a little different than this one, but what you should have, since we just installed the drivers, you should have in the port area Mackie to DAW and Stream Deck to DAW track, and in the output area a DAW to Mackie and a DAW track to Stream Deck. So for the import, the Mackie to DAW, we're going to select Visible. For the Stream Deck to DAW track, we're going to select Visible and In All MIDI. For the DAW to Mackie, select Visible, and for the DAW track to Stream Deck, select Visible. Now over on the left-hand side here, we're going to add a device. So click on Add a Device, and we're going to add in a Mackie control device. And under our new Mackie control, for the MIDI input, we're going to select Mackie to DAW, and the MIDI output, DAW to Mackie. Now in this area here, we're going to assign 3 functions. So for the F1 function, click on the category, and this is going to be an add track, and the command will be audio mono. For F2 in the category, it'll be another add track, and this one will be an instrument. And for F3, this will be a transport category, and the command will be activate metronome. We click apply, and that's our setup for Cubase. Now we're going to launch Davinci. Once we've launched and you've opened up a project, we'll go over to Davinci, Preferences, and we'll go over to the Control Panel section here. In the Audio Console, we're going to click the box for Use MIDI Audio Console. The MIDI protocol will be MCU compatible. The MIDI input is Mackie to DAW, and the MIDI output is DAW to Mackie. Now one word of note, I've noticed that we can set this up, and I click Save and Work, and everything works fine. Close down Davinci, and then a day later or so I'll open up Davinci expecting everything to work, and things aren't working, and so I go back into Davinci Resolve Preferences, and I would find that these have changed to something else just on their own. So if you come back to Davinci, it was working, but now it isn't. Go back into your preferences, make sure this hasn't changed on its own. It always goes back to Mackie to DAW and DAW to Mackie, and click Save. Now the next step is to launch Premiere Pro, and once we're open, we got a project open, we're going to go over to Edit, Preferences, and we'll go down to Control Surface. So in the Control Surface section, we're going to click on Add, and the device class will be Mackie, and we'll click on Settings, and we're going to click Add, and the device type will be Mackie Control. Your input device will be Mackie to DAW, and your output device will be DAW to Mackie. Say OK, OK again, OK, and we have it set up here. OK. Now let's go over to your Universal MIDI Controller folder you downloaded from SideshowFX, and you'll see there's a folder here called Win Only. If we click on this, inside is another folder, and we'll click once more, and we have these 3 files that we need to move, and they need to go to a very specific place. And over here you can see it's the root of your C drive, program files, your Reaper application, which in this case is Reaper x64, and the plugins inside of that folder. This is where you'll need to take all 3 of these files and drag them straight into the plugins folder. I've already got them there, so I'm not going to do it. Now once you've got that done, start your Reaper application. Now we're in Reaper, we're going to go over to Options, Preferences, and in the left-hand pane you'll see Control OSC Web. We're going to click on Add, and for the control surface mode we're going to select Mackie Control Universal. And for our MIDI input we'll select Mackie to DAW, and for our output, DAW to Mackie. Say OK. Now we're going to move over to MIDI devices under the audio section here. MIDI devices. For the inputs, we'll locate the Stream Deck to DAW track. We'll double click that because you can see it says disabled at the moment. And we will select Enable Input for both of these checkboxes. And say OK. Go into the output section. Find DAW track to Stream Deck. Once again, it is disabled. Double click and just select Enable Output. Say OK. And then we're going to click Apply. OK. And there we go. We've got the Reaper part of this set up. So next we'll launch Studio One. So once we've launched Studio One, we're going to go to Studio One Options. And you see there's some sections along the top here. We'll go to External Devices, click on Add. And we're going to add under Mackie Control. In the Receive From, we'll select Mackie to DAW, and the Send To will be DAW to Mackie. We'll say OK, and we have that one set up. Let's add a second one. This time it's going to be a new keyboard, and our Receive From will be Stream Deck to DAW track, and our Send To will be DAW track to Stream Deck. And click OK. And we'll have both devices now set up. So we'll click OK. And there's one more thing to do in Studio One. Because you've added those two devices, they will appear under External Devices here. Let's click on Control, the flyout menu there, Edit, and we're going to assign commands to these F1 to F8 keys. And how we do that is we right-click on a key we want to program, assign command, and in the search field, because there's a lot of commands here, so we'll just use the search field, and we'll do Add Audio, and it filters the results for us. We're going to add an audio track mono. That's loaded in there. And you'll go through and do the same process for the rest of the F keys. Assign command. And you'll enter in, and we'll put up on the screen here the rest of the keys F to F8, searching for them and then adding them in the same way. Once you've got that done, you can close up the dialog. And we'll go back out to our desktop. So the next thing we're going to do is launch Nuendo. And we're going to go to the top menu here, Studio, Studio Setup. And under our MIDI port setup here on the left-hand pane, your ports will likely look different than mine do here. But what you should see is a Mackie to DAW, and a Stream Deck to DAW track, and a DAW to Mackie, and a DAW track to Stream Deck. You should be able to see those since we just installed those MIDI ports in the previous step. So what we need to do is in the Mackie to DAW, we're going to select Visible. In the Stream Deck to DAW track, Visible, and we'll also select In All MIDI. For the out port, we'll select DAW to Mackie, make it visible, and DAW track to Stream Deck, make it visible. Now back over to the left-hand pane, we want to add a device here. So we'll click on this, and we're going to pull down to a Mackie control device. Now the first thing we want to do is set the input and output. So we'll select the input to Mackie to DAW, and the output DAW to Mackie. And we want to go down to and assign a few of these buttons here. So on F1, we want to click on Category, and we're going to select Add Track Category. And under Command, we'll select Audio Mono. We'll go down to F2. We'll also do an Add Track here. And under Command, we'll select Instrument. Now over to F3. We're going to click on the category, and this time we're going to scroll down to Transport. And under Command, we'll select Activate Metronome. Now under F4, the category is going to be Project. And the command will be Select Track Previous. On F5, it will also be Project, and this will be Select Track Next. We apply that and say OK when we're done with the studio setup. So once you're all imported, this is the main page you're presented with. And on the second row are all of the applications with the Windows version of our Universal MIDI controller. You have Cubase, Studio One, Reaper, Cakewalk, Ableton Live, Davinci, Premiere, and Nuendo. And of course, clicking on any one of these will open up its corresponding profile. Now, in addition, on this row here, we've included, just in the Universal MIDI controller pack, 2 additional profiles. The first is pads, and when we open this up, it's a pads controller for a drum program. And the demonstration of how this works is included in our Universal MIDI controller guide video, and there'll be a link below to that video. Hopping back out, the other special profile we've included, a keyboard controller. And inside this will allow us to control keys on a VST plugin. In addition, we have these set of faders here that you can program to control various aspects of your VST plugin. And once again, this is demonstrated in our Universal MIDI controller guide video with a link below. New in version 2 of this pack, we have articulation dynamics. Now this couple set of pages here features articulation notes you can use to access articulations in your VST software. And we have a special video we put together demonstrating how all this works, so look for that link in the description below. And that's it. You're all good to go. As always, you can check out our support page should you have any concerns or any difficulties. You should be able to find some answers there. And once again, thanks very much for downloading the pack. We really appreciate the support from the creative community. You guys have been wonderful to us, and we really appreciate you joining us on this journey. Until next time, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.